Welcome back to County Connection. For this next segment, we have a special guest in the SCTV studio. We're talking to Bill Jackson, who is the District Ranger for the Dillon Ranger District of the White River National Forest. Mouthful. Hi, Bill. Thanks for coming in today.
You're welcome, Julie. Glad to be here.
So, Bill, we're going to talk about some of the conditions that we're seeing out in the forest right now. Mm-hmm. And if we look back at where we were this time last year, it feels like the conditions could hardly be more different.
I would agree. It's about a 180-degree difference.
Yeah. So, so in terms of where we sit right now in late spring, early summer conditions, what are things looking like out there in the Dillon Ranger District?
Sure, good question. And for folks getting ready for camping season and summer season, it's definitely good to know what to expect as one ventures out in the woods, out onto the national forest. So we're coming off of an epic snow year, and in fact, it's still kind of snowing outside right now.
I know.
And it's late May, June 1st on Saturday. So we're coming off epic snowpack, and of course we had a historic avalanche season in March. So we're still seeing the effects of a lot of snow still in the high country, and it will delay the openings or the accessibility, I should say, not the opening, but the accessibility of certain trails out across the national forest because of that increased snowpack and muddy conditions. In the lower parts of the Dillon Ranger District in the valleys, it's fairly dry, some muddy spots here and there, but pretty well accessible in some of the more popular early season trails like Salt Lick and Frisco Peninsula trails, Oro Grande. Some of those go-to early season areas are pretty good to go to. Obviously, with the heavy winter coupled with the historic avalanche cycle, we have a lot of trees down, which is pretty evident. So that's one caution I would give to the public is when they're out there on the trails, expect some downed trees, expect muddy conditions if people are venturing higher, snow most certainly in the upper peaks and upper areas of our district. So water, we haven't had our spring runoff yet, really. It's still been too cold at night, and we're still having these colder temperatures, so that'll certainly be something for residents and visitors to be cognizant of, is that increased runoff, especially if you're out hiking and it requires crossing a creek. Real heads up on those potentially dangerous conditions when the water does come up.
Sure. And so for folks who maybe don't live in Summit County, but live in, maybe the Front Range or something like that, or even farther away, who maybe did recreate here in Summit County last year, they really shouldn't expect the same conditions that they saw on the same date.
That's right. And I would encourage any of our visitors to come visit us in Silverthorne at our ranger station, or call us at 970-468-5400 to ask questions of what's open, what might still be snow covered. All of our campgrounds are completely open. So all the campgrounds around Lake Dillon, as well as the campgrounds at Green Mountain Reservoir. So those are open. Very few of our roads are open right now due to the snowpack and muddy conditions. We do have a few roads that we have been able to open, but we're assessing that almost on a daily basis. We're seeing what the conditions are on the ground, and as we can swing a gate open, we'll do that, and then we'll update the front desk at our visitor center at the ranger station, so that information can be shared with people. But yeah, conditions this year are certainly drastically different than this time last year. This time last year, we were just about in fire season.
Right, I know. It was, so we're recording this show on the very end of May, and last year I believe it was June 12th that the Buffalo fire ignited.
That's right.
Which is pretty hard to imagine if you look around Summit County right now.
That's right. Yeah. The snowpack has been just incredible. Great ski season.
Yeah, great
Yeah.
ski season.
But it will delay and prolong the ability for people to get out into the high country, especially our 14ers and some of the peak climbing, stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So what are some tips you have in terms of enjoying our natural resources, our recreation resources responsibly, and specifically with an eye towards the conditions that we have this year?
Sure. Certainly with the conditions we have right now, with increased snowpack and runoff season is approaching, just being real mindful of traversing through mud, trying to stay away from trails if they're muddy. And they're having some patience so those trails have an opportunity to dry out is a big message, both for people hiking or mountain biking, or driving a vehicle. We had an instance up Tiger Road where folks tried to get up the Middle Fork and got stuck, and then got stuck in snow, and they had to be rescued. And so it's stuff like that to just have a little bit of patience and try to stick to those roads and trails that are open, that are good to go, that aren't so muddy, to avoid the resource damage that can occur from tracks in the mud and people going around things and creating bigger problems in the future.
Right. Some of those trail braiding issues and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I would say also know before you go is a good principle. So know where you're going and have a plan and maybe do a little bit of homework to see what is open and what the conditions might look like. I know in Breckenridge for the trails they have those mud meters. Which are pretty handy, low mud or so that it's same sort of concept. Just knowing where you want to go, and when you are out there recreating, just be mindful of others that are on the trail and be respectful, because not many trails are open right now across Summit County on the Dillon District. The people that want to get out are concentrated on the few trails and roads that are open. So expect more traffic, more interactions with different people doing different things, dog walkers and runners and hikers and mountain bikers. So just be heads up that you are going to see more people, be respectful.
It'll be a little more social than it is normally.
A little more social, that's right, that's right.
All right, meet a new friend. So to shift gears a little bit, we did mention the topic of wildfire a little bit. I've got my smoky shirt on today.
Love it.
So just because we've had this epic winter doesn't mean that we're out of the woods in terms of the potential for a wildfire later on this summer, right?
That's right. That's right. So it's not a time to be complacent about wildfire, although we we're fortunate with a good winter and good snowfall. We still always need to be thinking about wildfire. We live in an area where wildfires are part of the natural ecosystem of things. So fires do happen in Summit County. They happen across the West. So we're not going to do away with that because of the good snow year. So on our part, the Forest Service, we're always prepared for the event of wildfire. We still work with our partners with Summit County, with Red, White, and Blue, Summit Fire and EMS to do, make sure we're communicating and we're ready if something does pop, a fire does occur. So yeah, definitely the fire season is most likely just pushed back a little bit. So we're not going to have, at least in this area, our area, an early fire season like we did last year, where we had the Buffalo fire in early June. Right. So, in looking at the predictive services forecasting for wildfire in our area, it's looking like June, the month of June will be well below average for fire potential, wildfire potential. Same with July. I don't like to look more than 30 days out though, because as good a job as they do in predictions, it's not always 100%. So, but looking into June, it's supposed to be cooler than normal and wetter than normal. So it could be pushed back into July, if not into August. But that's not to say that on a south-facing slope that doesn't hold snow very well, that a fire couldn't happen after a week or 2 weeks of dry temperatures. Right. So we always have to be ready, can't be too complacent, and still work on defensible space on private property, have your go kit ready to go, just like what Chief Brino and Chief Keating push with the public is to be ready. And so yeah, it'll be pushed back, but we're still going to have a fire season.
Yep, indeed. And so Summit County and the White River National Forest have always been partners in wildfire mitigation as well as wildfire prevention. Yep. And this year we have a new set of programs or strategies. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about some of the new work that we're doing together?
Sure. As part of the Summit County 1A ballot initiative that passed, mm-hmm. and there was an opportunity to provide proposals to receive some of those funds, and the Forest Service did such. And working with Summit County, we will be getting funding through 1A for 3 different programs. The first one is the Dispersed Recreation Crew, and we had the same program last summer. It was a 4-person crew funded by Summit County, all the towns in Summit County, as well as Summit Fire and Red, White, and Blue all pitched in. So that was great, and they're very successful, this crew. This year it's a 6-person crew. Funding will come from 1A. Mm-hmm. So we're in the process of getting everyone trained up and hired on and getting them going. It'll start out a little bit slow because not all the places are open yet.
Right.
So they'll be patrolling the areas that are open.
Right.
So that's the first part of that. The second part of 1A funding that we will be receiving is to build our own fuels mitigation capacity in-house, internally with the Forest Service. So we propose to bring on an additional full-time employee, a fuels manager.
Okay.
And so that employee will help work with all the different entities working on fuel mitigation projects throughout Summit County.
And will that be year-round, or will that person be seasonally focused during fire season?
The intent is for that to be a permanent, full-time, year-round position.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Right now, because we just got the funding, we have a 4-month detailer, a permanent or a temporary employee working for 4 months to give us time to advertise that position permanently.
Okay.
So that takes a little bit of time with Forest Service to advertise a permanent position. So in the meantime, we have an employee already who's here on a 4-month rotation. Great. Her name is Rachel Owens, and she's in our office in Silverthorne. And so that's the second part of 1A. In addition to that fuels planner position, mm-hmm. a permanent position, we also will be getting funding for a fuels crew. So the intent being to have a 4 to 5 person seasonal, summer only, fuels crew to help with fuels mitigation projects across the district. So putting trees on the ground, making piles, helping to lay out future projects out on the landscape, working with different partners. So that's that second component. And then the third is trying to build our capacity to get more fuels mitigation work done in general. Since 2004, we've harvested over 12,000 acres of trees in that wildland urban interface, the WUI, it's coined.
And we saw the amazing effects of that during the Buffalo Fire, of projects like that.
Right. Same type of stuff. Mm-hmm. In that, the fire break, if you will, around Mesa, Cortina, and Wilderness, that was put in 2011, 2012 timeframe. It was one of the projects that at the time was not very popular with the public. They thought we were crazy to want to cut down trees next to beautiful homes, but
now it makes a lot of sense.
We're fortunate that we didn't want to test it this way, but going into these projects, we have the mindset that it can only help. It can only give firefighters more opportunity to engage wildfire. Right. Give a little bit of more time for evacuations. And reduce that vegetation so it's not flammable anymore. Right. So the third, like I was saying, the third part of the 1A funds is to try to get more work done, and we plan to do that by also working with external partners such as Colorado State Forest Service. So we plan to enter into a good neighbor agreement with them because it's a national initiative to try to create more of these good neighbor authority agreements with state forestry agencies. They have a lot of expertise that we could capitalize on, and they're interested in doing more work in Summit County. So it's a good relationship. The funding will come from 1A to bring that relationship together. So we'll be working alongside State Forest Service foresters to try to tackle even more acres on the landscape. So
Fantastic.
yeah, it's a great opportunity.
Great.
Absolutely.
Cool. Anything else we should have on our minds related to wildfire, or have we covered the bases?
Well, we're going to continue to push our fuels projects out on the landscape, and I mentioned a few. This summer, our contractor, West Range Forest Products, will be working in the Ophir Mountain area. So this will be part 2. They were in that area all last summer, and they accomplished about 400 acres of harvesting. And this summer, they'll try to tackle the southern part of the Ophir Mountain area, so another 450 acres. So that's one area we'll have some active logging in. Over on Tenderfoot Mountain, there's a few units that were approved in previous analyses. And so there will be some work done there. Keystone Gulch, we have a couple units there that we're going to be working on through a contractor again. And then out into the future, we have some harvest units up Indiana Gulch, and that's in partnership with the town of Breckenridge. We have a MOU with the town of Breckenridge to improve water quality to their primary watershed. So the goose pasture tarn relies on water from Indiana Gulch. So we're going to do work there, and we're going to do future planning work in that drainage as well, together with the town of Breckenridge. And then looking into the future, we're always planning projects for the future in terms of where do we go next with our fuels mitigation projects. Where do we try to reduce fuels in that interface with homes and neighborhoods and communities, et cetera.
Right.
So we have another project we're looking at in the Swan Mountain area. So it'd be that area between Summit Cove and Tiger Road, Swan Mountain Road, sort of that area we haven't been to yet. We haven't done much work there at all. So that's in the future, as well as doing some re-entries into older clear cuts. So we have a variety of areas that we've harvested since the 80s, some of which we've not been back into to thin those stands out. So that's another future project that we're working on.
All right, sounds good. So a lot of activity happening many places all throughout the county.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Keep them busy.
Yeah.
A lot of partners, and we're fortunate with all the, all the good partnerships we have with Summit County and with State Forest Service. Denver Water has been a huge partner with providing the funding and the partnering to get more work done on the ground. They've contributed $3.5 million over the past 6 years to accelerate the pace and scale of forestry work.
Right. And that's through the Forest to Faucets program?
That's right, through the Forest to Faucets. Lake Dillon is, I think, 25% of Denver's water comes from Lake Dillon. So it's a primary watershed of high importance to Denver Water and the city of Denver, frankly. So they're contributing funding to get work done to reduce fuels, to avoid what happened during the Hayman fire, where you get just a bunch of sediment into the reservoir. It costs millions to clean that out, to take care of water quality. And the Nature Conservancy is another partner that we'll be working with here in the future. They're interested in partnering with us for fuels mitigation projects. So it's good. I mean, we have a lot of partners. Everyone wants to be involved and be active. The two fire departments, Summit Fire and Red, White, and Blue, great partners. We work well together. So yeah, it's a good place to be, and we just got to keep those wildfires at a minimum. Right.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see, Bill, is there anything else that you'd like to touch on as we look forward to the summer season here in the on the Dillon Ranger District?
I think we covered some of the more important topics that are always on my mind. So wildfire, fuels mitigation projects, fuels reduction, recreation this summer, I'm sure, and we covered a little bit of recreation in terms of early season conditions and being prepared. I think moving into the summer, there are lots of opportunities to volunteer. Great. And we have great volunteer groups in Summit County, Friends of Dillon Ranger District and Friends of Eagles Nest Wilderness and many, many more mountain bike clubs. And so I would just encourage viewers to get out there and help out. And it makes a tremendous world of difference to to the agency. And these are everybody's public lands. These are national forests. They don't belong to me. They belong
Right.
to you all.
That's right.
So yeah, come on out and help us out. It'd be great.
All right, fantastic. Well, thanks so much for coming into the SCTV studio today, Bill.
Yeah, it was a pleasure.
Great to hear about all
Thanks for
the
having
great
me.
things happening out on the forest.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
All right, we're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about swiftwater safety as we head into runoff season.